Hello everyone, my name is Jeff Cooper's Ghost. In this video I will be inspecting, gauging, and assembling our lower receiver to pair with the upper that we built in the last video. Let's get right into it. Let's start with gauging the threads on the buffer tube, castle nut, and receiver. Let's go over here and check buffer tube first. We have class 3 go. Spins right on. We want to see it take more than 3 spins. It certainly does. Class 3 no-go. And it takes it with class 3. So he takes the no-go, so this is not a class 3 tube. Let's check class 2. Class 3 is the tightest, class 1 being the loosest. We're going to check class A go. Threads on. Great. Class 2 go. Will not go any further than that. I'm not going to force it. This is a class 2 buffer tube. Let's check the castle nut. Start with class 3. Class 3 go. Takes it all the way down. How about class 3 no-go? If it takes this, it is not a class 3. All the way. This is not a class 3 castle nut. Let's move down to class 2. Now class 2 and 3 no-go are the same, 1.469, so we'll go straight into the class 2 no-go. It feels a little chippy in there. Okay, class 2, yes, class 2 no-go. It's taking it, but not going all the way down. It stops right about there. It doesn't want to go any more than that. So this is a little less than class 2. It's like this is like a tight class 1, a little less than class 2. go to our receiver now that we've got this out. Check class 3 on our receiver. This is class 3 go 1469. Let me see if I can seat this thing first of all. Clean this out a little. There we go. Takes our class 3 go. Let's check class 3 no go. Okay, there it is, starting and will not go anymore. So we have a class 3 receiver. Now, we know that we have a class 3 tube, a class 2 tube, a class 3 receiver. We used to have a class 1 castle nut, and here it is. So we have class 3, class 2, class 1. With class 3 being the tightest and class 1 being the loosest, the super secret formula is that if all of these are class 3, 1, 2, 3, if they were all class 3, they do not require any thread locker or staking. Very few companies machine and manufacture all 3 of their own components to class 3 threads, but some of them do. Class 2, if your parts average out to class 2 or 1, you will require thread locker and staking to secure them in place against vibration. So, are there any questions? Yes, little Timmy. Well, what does it matter? Why would anyone buy these? And what does it matter if you can just, if any combination of these things tells you that you should put this stuff on there and stake your castle nut? Why would any of this matter? what's the difference? My stuff isn't even staked. I can't tell what they are, and shot them thousands and thousands of times, and they blah blah blah, and they still haven't come loose, or blah blah blah, this and that. I'm glad you asked, Timmy. And the $2,000 answer, and it's a $2,000 answer because each of these are like 250 bucks a piece. The $2,000 answer is if you're working on someone else's guns, it speaks a little bit about your integrity, your expertise and professionalism to be able to show the client more about his rifle than he would just be able to tell by looking shit up on the internet. Well, I can buy four guns with the amount of money that you spend on those gauges. Yes, Samantha, we all know how many things fit into other things. If you don't care or you're not working on anyone else's rifles, then it doesn't matter. Don't buy it. So, we will be using thread locker and staking our castle nut. This was all assembled, by the way, and we took it apart, and the castle nut was not staked. There was some thread locker on there. It was like a white kind of substance. It kind of dried on there, and I think it might have been rock set. Who knows? But we'll be torquing to 40 foot-pounds. Thread locker between the receiver and buffer tube, and stake the castle nut. Let's get these put away, and then we'll put the receiver on the bench and gauge the holes. Okay, before we take this thing out of the receiver block, we have everything taken off of this except for the bolt catch. You want your bolt catch to thread into its button no further than the serrations. The threaded male portion should be flush with its hole on the other side. Now, what we're going to check for here is any clicking. We're going to bias the magazine catch up and down and check to see if this end hangs up on the receiver and gives us any kind of clicking. So I've already done this one, but I'm going to show you how to check for this. We just bias one end of the magazine catch over the other. We'll check the bottom here, and you're going to listen for any heavy major clicking and check for that button hanging up on the other side. And then you come up to the top and check. So if you are biasing the lower part of the button, you're going to be checking the top edge of the catch on the receiver. If you bias the top of the button, you're going to check and see if the lower edge catches on the receiver. And I'll show you what the fix is if you do hear clicking. Let's get it out of there real quick. You can do this with a file or a rotary tool. If the edge of this part hangs up on your receiver, you can simply bevel the edge of that or radius it over using files or a Dremel. And I've left it in the white there so that you guys can actually see it. But the area of the part that needs to be modified. I wonder if you can see that bevel looking head on. Can you guys see how it's a little rounded and beveled over? Okay, let's get this thing out of its fixture and we'll check the holes over here. Okay, we're going to gauge starting with the gap between the takedown pins. This is a little bit of a clone of a gauge that the Marine Corps uses to check this spec. This should not go in between the two lugs, front or back. Does not go in the back. While we're looking down at this angle, we want to check to make sure that these wall thicknesses are not noticeably thicker than the other. Obviously, one part of this down here will be, but around the trigger housing area, the trigger and hammer area, we want to check that wall thickness. You don't have to mic it, but if you can visually tell, and so, you will be able to tell if one side is off or another. Let's do takedown bore. This is go. Takes it, goes to the other side. Takes it, goes to the other side. Let's check the back. Now this one is 3,000ths smaller than our no-go dimension on this. It may take it. Which is a good thing to see. If it still doesn't take this, then it definitely will not take the real no-go dimension. Let's check trigger and hammer pins. We have two sets of these, by the way. One is for the larger Colt style hammer and trigger pins. This is our standard size. Here's our go. Takes it no problem. Let's check no go. Does not take it. And it does not take these no-go pins. Now, what we're looking for on all of these holes is stretching or elongating or egging. Now, I don't have pins that are modified like Chad's are, so that you can, they've kind of got the top and bottom, like the 12 and 6 o'clock position, have been ground down some, so that you can put this in and try and turn it and check for that stretching or egging. You can also if you know the exact size of your pin, you can take two smaller pins that add up to that, try and turn them in here, and that will tell you if these are egged out or stretched at all. Let's check the safety bore. Let's check it with our go. That's our no-go. This is our go. Takes it. It's tight there, it takes it all the way in. Okay, so what can cause stretching like this between the holes? Well, first off, wear will, if grit gets in there, and under recoil, any particulates or abrasives that are in there over time can open up these holes. All of these holes that hold steel parts should have aeroshell between the parts to prevent galvanic corrosion between the dissimilar metals. When sweat and abrasives or other salt in the atmosphere gets in there, that will also cause these holes to wear and egg out faster. Good training will, and what I mean by good training is reputable training outfits will teach you to engage the safety when your muzzle comes off of the target. Which means if you train a lot like that, you will be moving the safety a lot and wearing that hole more. So the more you use it, the more it's going to wear. Another one that Chad brings up that I didn't think about at all is bayonet training will stretch the takedown pinholes. Let me check my notes and see what else was recommended to me here. So be cautious to check for these. These are not very expensive at all. Anyone can get these and check for this to see if you have oversized holes. When we get the trigger assembly together, I will show you what to look for to see. You will visually be able to see if these pins are moving forward and backwards. They are supposed to sit in here and spin freely, but when they move back and forth, that's when you know you might have a problem that can result in the safety not holding, the safety and the sear not holding the parts together, and you could have your parts slip. The trigger, sear, and safety could fail to hold each other if these wear excessively. So I think that's it as far as inspection goes. Let's put her back together in reverse here. Let's see if I can do this on the first try without shooting springs everywhere. We're going to put this into the vise again. Oh, I do not have any, I don't have a wide variety of magazines to check for the magazine gauge. I also don't have that specific gauge for checking the magazines. I also don't have any of the client's magazines that we'll be using for this either, so I can tell you just by putting it on the Brownells bench block, it is a very tight fit. I struggle to get it all the way down past the magazine catch. Okay, so as we put all of these things together, we will be coating the bores and the parts with the molybdenum aeroshell grease. There's about enough of this in here to paint a house, so I will pretty much just take it out of the lid as we put them back in and put everything together. Let's start with the front takedown pin. I'm just going to use the Real Avid tool to help put this together. Applying a little bit of that grease into the hole and the other side as well. We want some on our part. Bumping into this thing. We lost it already. Here it is. Okay, I'm gonna help us with the screwdriver here because this thing sometimes gives me a hard time. There we go. Your pins should move under finger pressure, you guys. You should not need to excessively press on your takedown holes to engage with them. Okay, let's get the mag catch and bolt hold open in next. And same thing, we're going to be applying a little bit of that molybdenum on these parts as well. And again, we're going to thread that thing into its flush with its hole. See how I went a little too far there? Maybe you can't see. That's too far. I'm going to come on a turn or two. Maybe one. Okay, let's get the bolt catch on. Some molybdenum in there. And we'll put some in the coil spring, the spiral roll pin, the roll pin holes as well. I'll apply some to the plunger as well. Okay, again goes our part. Stainless steel spiral roll pin. I'll be using the Wheeler roll pin punch for this. Fits right on the side, sets it in real easy. We'll also put some of that grease directly on our pin. Whoops. Let's flip that around. Okay, let's get our trigger and stuff in. We're going to use Ned Christensen's hammer install tool. Comes with a handy dandy pin for the trigger and hammer pins. We will, of course, get the molybdenum in there before we set everything up. A little extra in there, a little extra outside's okay. We're going to wipe it off anyway. Okay, let's take a look at Ned Christensen's handy dandy hammer installation tool. I think he's got a new one out now. This is the one I ordered from him. We're going to fit the legs of our hammer into these little holes at the tip there. And then cock our hammer back under this little pocket here. It's cut out for the disconnector here. Let's put it into place. We'll use our slate pin here to hold everything. And we have our greased takedown pin. Snaps perfectly into place. And now pull back on the spring legs and pull it right out. Let's see if we did that correctly. Okay, let's slowly check our disconnect function. Slowly resetting the trigger. Quickly resetting the trigger. Okay. Let's do our rear takedown before we do our buffer tube assembly and safety. So we're going to come over here and get some grease into takedown hole here and our takedown hole back here. In goes our plunger back here. Okay. and I'm just pressing that back of that spring into place and checking how easy that takedown pin pushes out. Okay, so we have our Class 3 receiver, we have our Class 2 tube, we have our Class 1 castle nut. I will show you specifically how we're going to assemble this lower receiver based on the thread specs. Now, because we are going to have, we want a wet torque value when we torque this thing, and we have a steel nut and an aluminum thing. We're going to first apply some of that shell grease all the way back here, and then we will thread on our castle nut. Okay, we'll thread our castle nut dry on here, so we're not putting molybdenum grease all over the front of our tube that we will be thread locking into our lower. So we pre-grease the back of that. We get our end plate, which is somewhere. Here it is. Okay, so now we will apply some of our VC3 thread locker into here and on the front of our buffer tube. Now the advantages of this, it's kind of like rubber cement, as Chad tells us from School of the American Rifle. It's a low temperature thread locker, which, and by low temperature we mean like 200 degrees. You can also dissolve it with just acetone. So you don't need any high heat to take this off if you want to take your buffer tube off. And someone in the back, Timmy, was saying, why don't you just, you know, throw this stuff on everything and stake everything? Well, if it is Class 3, and if the threads between the receiver and the buffer tube are Class 3, that means there's very little allowance between the thread, and when there is allowance with Class 2 and 1, this is taking up that space and absorbing those vibrations that would cause the combination of two loose thread types to come off. If it's Class 3 and the threads are so tight together, it's just going to spooge out, and you'll just make a mess and get product everywhere and just waste your VC3. So let's take this guy out for now. When we're getting close, we'll put that in at the last couple rotations. We're also going to put our retainer into its hole, and we will grease that as well. A little grease directly in there. Wipe out that excess there, because we don't want that on our thread locker. And we've got some on our retainer here. Where's our spring? And we'll put that in place, and I'll show you how far we want to screw in our end plate to retain that properly. We want this front part of our buffer tube to more than contact the edge of that retaining circle, that larger diameter. You could call it the areola and the nipple. We want to cover the areola. It is not enough to just touch it. We need to completely cover it. You'll see what I mean when we get this thing together. Degrease these threads a little bit. Okay, now let's apply some of that VC3 to the back of our threads here. Okay, that cap was very tight. Let's get some just on the back of this receiver. And then just on the front of our buffer tube. Okay, here we go. We're going to install all of this into our receiver. Now, what we're paying attention to here is when the end of that receiver the end of that buffer tube gets close. To that retainer. Okay, let's see where we're at. I'll show you guys right here. We're getting closer to it. It's right up on it. I think one more rotation will get us on the end of that thing. Just one more, and we are on there. We'll stop just short and get our takedown spring in there. We'll see if we can do this without launching this thing out. Actually, what we'll do here. .10-8 Armorer's tool, we're just going to use that spatula end to maintain this straightness on that spring. There we are. Now, I've got a little space in here. This is where we'll apply some more of that molybdenum before we hand tight this thing. Okay, let's get this thing hand tight. Wipe off some excess here. Okay guys, from here we're going to install the green monster. Get you guys this way. I forgot to put the safety in, but that's okay. Okay, our wrench did not understand how to get to American units, so let's go to, here we are, 40 foot-pounds. Okay, here we go. Okay, let's take this thing out of our green meanie. Take this wrench off, and then we'll stake this thing. Okay, we're gonna stake in, I think we've got we've got 2 places to stake here. And what's cool about this particular fixture here is that you can clamp on either one of these depending on where you're, to make it easier for your staking operation. We've got one right here. That's a little weak. A little weak too. There, that's pretty good in there. Probably would help to lock the vise down. Give you guys a look at that. I'd say that's pretty decent. So let's flip this thing and do the other one. Could be better. I think that's good. Could have had our strike point a little closer into that pocket. But she's good. certainly no way that's going to spin off. No possible way. Okay, I'm pretty proud of that one, guys. So let's wipe the shit off of here, and I'll show you a recoil spring. Oh, you know what? We should probably put the safety back in. I suppose we can do that. Make sure you get parts everywhere. Make sure you drop that directly into a little pile of fucking metal chips. You want to see a really ghetto parts washer? How about a mason jar of kerosene and a paintbrush? Let's just wipe that thing off over here. Metal parts love kerosene, you guys. Oh, before we put this in, let's get the metal bending grease inside that bore, inside that safety bore. Well, let's put a little on the external surface of that too. Okay, it puts the grease on the pins. Okay, there is one more thing we have to go over, and that's the installation of the grip screw. The grip screw is made of steel in the aluminum frame, so that bore will get the molybdenum too. There's also a torque spec for it. Pistol grip screw is 35 inch-pounds. You will need an extender. The Wheeler, the standard Wheeler Fat, at least this model does. This is an older one. The wrench will not reach in there to get the pistol grip. Make sure you loose your spring and your plunger. Actually, what we'll do is we'll hold our receiver like yo. In goes our detent. We will pre-grease this bore. Get a little on the grip screw itself. Now this grip screw, there is an overall length spec on this, and if it's too long, it can screw into the back of the trigger. A lot of people will tune this to work as a trigger stop for over travel. here we are, 35 inch-pounds. We have our extender. Okay, we have just a little extra grease to wipe off here. Safety is very positive. Okay, and there's our lower receiver. Oh, I had a recoil spring to show you. Of course, that fits in just like yo. Let's collapse that guy. When you collapse the spring around its buffer, you should not see every single one of these touches. There should be a few at the top that do not touch each other. You want to collapse it to its solid height. You want to see the tip of the buffer protrude from the top of the stack. And let's see if I can get that down there. Okay. Difficult for you to see that, but the buffer is peeking out, and there is still some give in the spring. Almost fucked up. So that is the lower we will be pairing with this upper that we built in the last video. Let's do another one because we put another one together for the same client. This one has an F1 223 wild barrel, also has the oversized gas bore. It gauges about 80 to 81 thousandths. 223 wild. We've got the Spyderco upper on this guy, Silencer Co. And put this down. This one we did not lap the receiver on. We polished the feed ramps and bedded the barrel, torqued to 40 pounds. This one would not fit in the Brownells fixture, so I did not lap it. That was, of course, that was before I thought about holding it in the vise this way while using the polishing jig, but that's okay. We'll do one more receiver, and then I'll talk to you guys a little about the bolts we're selecting and the adjustable gas lock we're using to help. Both of those things will help address the overgassing issue when we test fire. Stick around, you guys. We're almost there. Okay, here is receiver number 2 that we'll be pairing with our silencer co-upper. It is a Ruger AR556. Let's get into it. One of the things I noticed right away, let's see if I can get it to happen. There you go. That safety lever was hanging up. On that little boss on the side of the receiver. You can see where it's scratching it out. I think that maybe the detent was drilled in the wrong position for that, or maybe if we come over here and feel our Anderson that we just put together, very nice, very snappy. Let's see if you guys can see. Do you see the gap between the switch and the receiver? And then come over here, we'll look at the Ruger, look at the gap. It is almost non-existent. There is almost no gap. And it's riding up on that little guard right there. That's just something I know right off the bat. So let's get the grip off of this thing. We don't know how much that is torqued down there with, so let's find our bit handle that's long enough to take that. There we go. See if it comes off. Okay, it's not coming off my hand. Let me see if I can find another driver to fit that. Okay, let's just see how loose this thing comes off. Get rid of that for a minute. Okay, let's see how loose that, or how tight that thing is on there. It just started turning. Definitely on there with less than 35 inch-pounds. Okay, now I don't know if you can tell right here, but this is a considerably longer grip screw than the first lower receiver we did. Let's see if we lost that detent already. Okay, that might have just fallen out. I'll find it in a second or replace it. This front pin is a little stubborn, but it does come out without hurting me. Definitely no grease in there. Let's pop out the roll pin here. We'll be replacing that with a spiral pin. Up flies our detent. Okay, there's our recovered detent. Let's get the mag catch out of there. No grease on the pins. Let's contain this so it doesn't fly out. Our spring is less than straight. Should be straight. A lot of people will bend this to reduce trigger pull. Should be straight. We have a little bit of oil and grease on there. Of course, we drop it everywhere. Whoops. Let's check to see if our buffer tube was installed square. I have a feeling it might not be. That doesn't look straight to me. So let's put it in here. We can use this as a gauge. And it passes. It's not too bad. Let's get this thing in here. Let's get a wrench around this and we'll see how tight this thing is on here. Let's see, we don't see any staking. And we'll see how how much force it takes to get this thing off of here. Oh, geez, a bit. The weight of the tool, just the weight of the tool is enough to spin that thing right off of there. No molybdenum grease in here. Doesn't look like there was anything. Any thread retaining compound holding it on. Stick our buffer tube out of there. Or buffer spring. And recoil spring. There goes a plunger. There goes a retaining pin. Launching right out of there. Running out of space, you guys. Okay, let's put our magwell fixture back up in here. Okay, let's start with the buffer tube. Spin you around here. Let's check class 3. Go. Takes the go. How about class 3, no go? Certainly threads in. This is not a class 3 tube. Class 2, go. It certainly accepts that. Class 2, no go. Definitely. Ooh. Hard to say. I would say that is a loose class 2. How about let's call that a class 2. Let's check out castle nut. Start with class 3. Starting with class 3, go. Spins right on, no problem. Let's check class 3, no go on the other side. If it takes this, it is not a class 3 thread. No surprise, spins right on. This is not a class 3 castle nut. Let's check class 2. We already know it passes the same diameter. Same go, 461469. Let's check 2, no go. Class 1 castle nut. Let's go back and check class 3, and we will check receiver threads. Class 3, go. No surprise. Class 3, no go. Let's check for no go. And it threads in. This is not a class 3 receiver. Move down to class 2. Okay, class 2, we know it goes into the 1469 go. Let's check class 2, no go. And that's it, that's all she takes. So we have a class 2 receiver, class 2 tube, and a less somewhere between 1 and 2 with our castle knob. So we will be putting VC3 between the receiver and the tube, as well as molybdenum between the tube and the castle nut, and we will stake the end plate. Let's get this, let's put the gauges away. And we'll take our receiver over here and gauge out the pins. Gauge out the bores, I'm sorry. Alright, so. Okay, first off, let's check between our takedown holes using the Marine Corps gauge to check that spacing between takedown. It should not go in, and it does not. Let's check the back. It does not go in. Let's check takedown pin diameter. Passes the front. Passes the back. Let's check no-go. This is, again, it's a few thousandths shorter than the true no-go dimension. This is a 250 gauge. Let's see if it takes these. It does not take these, so. Ooh. This side takes it with some considerable amount of play. Let's try the back takedown. Almost does not take all of this one. Remember, this one is undersized, so. And it does take this one. It's undersized because I do not have the 250 is the limit of my pin gauge, so I would either have to make one or source one. So those likely check out. Most takedown pins are incorrect from the manufacturer, says Chad. Let's check go dimension for our fire control holes. Passes through. Passes the trigger and passes the trigger over here. Let's check no go fire control dimension. Does not take it. Does not take it. Does not take it. And does not take it. Let's check safety bore. That is our no-go. Let's check with the go. It wants to hold up in there. Let's check the other side. Go dimension. It passes all the way into there. I don't know if you can tell, but it's stopping just short in there. Just short of clearing the receiver wall. So let's apply our molybdenum grease to all of these surfaces and get it back together. Okay, starting with our front takedown pins. We'll use our Real Avid tool to get that pin and everything in there. Probably take it out and put the spring in first. Sometimes you need a little help even with the jig. Okay, our spring sticks out just a little proud of its bore, its hole, and it's making it a little difficult to hold in that D10. Let's find our takedown pin and apply some grease to it. And our D10 popped out again. That was lucky. And I just lost that little stud that goes into our fixture. Oh, here it is, literally right under my nose.
Yikes, this one does not want to go in easy. I hope you guys are keeping track of how many times it takes me to get this right, because this particular pin is a pain in the ass. I'm going to see if we have another spring.
I'll be right back, you guys.
Okay, we're going to try this. With a new spring and a new pin.
That was our old one.
And these are our new ones.
See the old spring? New one's darker.
See if we can have an easier time putting these new ones in. There we go. Now we should be able to. I knew I wasn't using this thing right. And there she goes. When you use it right, it actually works. But boy, is it gritty. It is quite hard to open that thing up. Something really wants to scratch in there. Let's take a peek at that and see what's making that scratch. It's okay, we can take it out one more time. Checking to see if there's any burrs holding that thing up into there. grease the inside of our mag catch hole for a plunger tube. Pop that guy in. Okay, select a new spiral roll pin, stainless, for our mag catch hole. We'll use the handy dandy starter pin for this one that I forgot to use on our last receiver. Okay, good function there. Oh, you know what? We ought to put our mag catch in. There goes our roll pin. Clean that off a little bit. Of course, we want our molybdenum in there as well. I knew we would do something out of order. Okay, let's get our button on. It's a little more than we need. Perfect. Okay, we're gonna grease our fire control bores. And we'll grease the safety bore as well. Okay, we'll grease our grease our firing pins, our fire control pins. Install our spring legs into the Michigan's tool. Resetting slow. And resetting fast. Okay, we're good there. Okay, let's grease our takedown detent. We'll put our takedown detent in there. Grease our rear takedown pin.